This is Artblock. This is what we're gonna do at Artblock, all right? If you could pick one art skill to master, what would it be and what would you do after you master it? Only one. Which one would you pick? Leave your answers in the comments down below. Hello everyone, I'm Ergo Josh, and today we're going to work on fixing your art block. So this first video is going to be part of a 3-part series about killing your art block, and we're going to go through 3 parts because I believe there's 3 main reasons that we all have art block, and that's going to be motivation, fear, and creativity, and I actually think that those are in order of importance. So first, let's just do a quick little small definition of what art block actually is, and I believe it's simply any fear or frustration or pain that an artist experiences that prevents them from creating. Now, this tends to fluctuate between different people and different art styles and all kinds of things and personalities, but it usually tends to come and go for different lengths of time as well. If you're watching this video, you've probably experienced art block for yourself, especially because recently on my community page here on YouTube, I asked you guys to give me a little bit of a story about how you've experienced art block and hopefully share with others, and over 200 of you responded. I noticed that a lot of the questions had to deal with 2 things. One of them was motivation, which is a question I often get a lot all the time on stream, especially. And the second one had to deal with creativity and just not knowing what to draw. Speaking of when I get that question on stream, you guys should follow me on Twitch. I do stream here as well, but I've been thinking of responding to more questions directly on stream, so you don't want to miss that. So make sure you sub or follow on Twitch, and then make sure you turn your notifications on for this channel in case I go live. So I realized that motivation has 2 main sources or inputs to it while I was thinking about this, and it's something that I've always known, but it's really become very clear to me now. And especially as I was writing it, I actually stumbled across a video by Dr. K. I don't know if you all know him, Healthy Gamer. He has a video called The Psychology of Motivation, and he's done plenty of videos on motivation before, but I watched this one and his ideas on it and how it splits into kind of 2 sources is something I highly agree with, and I really recommend you check out the video. It's about 10 minutes. Watch the whole thing and think about how you can apply it to your own personal situation. And there's even some really cool nuggets in the comments as well from other people who found it really helpful. So let's go into motivation in those 2 parts I mentioned. The first part is going to be external motivation. What that is exactly how it sounds. It's basically when your motivation is based off of something that is external, outside of your control. This usually comes in the form of likes, accolades, praise, positive criticisms. It can even come in the form of when you actually are able to create something that looks exactly like how you thought it would look in your head. So I want to stress now early on that this isn't a bad thing. It's very normal and natural to desire external motivation. But when you highly depend on it as your only source of motivation, guess what happens? Because it's external, it comes and goes, and your motivation will come and go. And then you won't get anything done. You'll feel wondering why you can't draw, you'll feel terrible. And unfortunately, that is a huge component of successful artists, whether or not they can control the proportion of external motivation that fuels them to create. Not to mention, this can negatively impact your mental health over time, as these ebbs and flows can become like tides that get stronger and stronger as they push and pull, and you can start to feel extremely desolated and depressed when your motivations are gone. So let's talk about the other factor, the other source of motivation, which is internal motivation. This is the one that I like. This is the one I want you guys to focus on. It's something that simply comes from within, and it seems to almost never end because it's something that's controlled by you for the most part. It's not really easily swayed by external factors that are outside of your control. It tends to almost feel like an immortal force that's pushing you forward because it isn't affected, like I said, by other things. And because of that, you're always able to detect how you're moving closer to this internal motivation, and you're always able to adjust for that, and you're always able to measure that. And no matter what else happens, you're like, well, this is my internal motivator and I'm going towards that. And so I still feel like I can keep going forward. And that is the magic of it. That's why it's so powerful. Internal motivators tend to often be bigger than ourselves. An analogy that Dr. K said in that video is it's like when your kid is at gunpoint, right? It's one thing when you're at gunpoint, you might feel like running away, you might feel scared, but when it's somebody that you care about that's in trouble, it's a different story. When you have an internal source of motivation that tends to be bigger than you, bigger than just what you envision yourself doing at the final result, you tend to be able to withstand any pressure, any frustration that may come when things don't end up the right way, when you don't get all the likes, when it doesn't turn out the way you envisioned in your head. You still push forward because you're like, I'm still going towards that external motivator, and that thing has to be done, whether or not I'm almost in the picture or not. You almost get away from yourself. So let's go ahead now that I've told you about internal and external motivation. I'm going to tell you about how to limit external motivators and how to build internal motivators. Like I said, external motivation is a good thing, but you want to make sure to limit it if you are completely dependent on it. And here's a very interesting thing that I was thinking of recently. I'm going to shout out PCAT and her streams because this was an amazing idea. Something that I realized was, likes and accolades and comments are great, but I noticed that nowadays when I look at the likes, I'm keeping track of about 20 people, 20 mutuals that I follow, and I want to know if they liked my photograph. And I noticed that they tend to like different things than everyone else that follows me on Instagram likes. And I tend to find a lot of satisfaction in that. It's something that I asked myself, and I was like, okay, well, if I had 10 really great friends and art friends and we all met up all the time and we all talked to each other about our art and encouraged each other and praised each other, how much more would I value that than having 10,000 random likes, from people that like my artwork, but I'm never going to be able to closely interact with them. And I realized I'd much rather prefer the latter. In this case, I would suggest this is the perfect time, if you're a beginner artist, to try to focus and cultivate smaller groups that can help build you up and support you, and to just enjoy and experience the same interests in your own artwork or whatever artwork your group is interested in. And there's all kinds of platforms for this, but Discord especially, it's so easy to be able to get to meet people and get experience with different things and get exposed to different artists and different artworks that are your same interests or your same skill level, your same age group. Who knows? It's so cool. And I think that's something you should focus on. And that's what I would tell myself if I could go back in time. Hey, instead of worrying about all these watchers and likes on DeviantArt, try to cultivate a community, try to join a community that can help support you and you can find similar interests in. And that is something I think that is going to take you way further, especially when you're in your beginning years, growing your audience, than trying to find as many likes as you can. Now, I have to be honest with you, external motivators, if you are pretty addicted to them, the reality is that if you want to be really, really good at art, or you want to get a job or make a career out of this one day, you're going to have to learn to deal with them pretty quickly, because you can't be having 2, 3, 6 months, 1 year breaks from art if you want to make some progress. Like if you're the type of person that's on a few months, off a few months, on a few months, you're just not going to be able to cut it. And the people who are able to focus on their internal motivators are going to run circles around you. I recommend that if you're really, really bogged down in this, to try to do a social detox. And depending, you can look it up. There's amazing videos on it on YouTube. I did one, I think it was last year. It was a very intense one, 24 hours, no going outside. I only allowed myself to look outside, looking out the window, no food. I fasted for 24 hours, no games, no drawing, no music, no nothing, no cleaning. And what happened was I found myself at the end of the day, when I could finally have my meal, I ate it in silence without watching YouTube, and I could swear it tasted so much better than I ever remembered. And I really, really believe that's something that could be like eye-opening, just amazing for you to experience what the simple things in life are like, especially in this super highly connected internet technological age. One of my favorite artists, J.W. Cooper, talks about all the time. She's always going out to camp alone regularly throughout the year. And a lot of her reasonings are about, art, creativity. But I really believe a strong one that she benefits from is this ability to kind of reset her expectations and reset her own self-introspection. I really believe, like, if you were to go out and be stranded on an island, you would learn the beautiful satisfaction of a hot meal after a long day's work. That satisfaction you would have would be just like getting 10,000 likes on Instagram, I bet, because there's just something kind of carnal about that that's just embedded in us. And I think that doing some form of detox like this and having some sort of regular time throughout the week that you kind of step back and just kind of just take a moment for yourself, that's going to really help you start to see how you can discover how to build internal motivation later on. I also want to tell you another tip, which is to limit how much you compare yourself with others. And I do this a lot. It's one of my best traits and one of the worst traits that I have. And specifically talking about Instagram, Instagram actually has a feature now. I don't know if it's tested around the world yet, but you can click on your own post, your latest post, or whichever post you want, and select and opt to hide the number of likes. That way you don't compare every single time and you don't go check and see what the likes are. And for me, someone like me, if I turn it off, I won't turn it on to check the likes. It's just there and I'm like, yeah, I know this is for my mental health. I'm not going to look at these likes and I'm not going to be continually building this kind of like record as I go through. I'm just going to post for a little bit and just experience that for a while. And I'll turn it back on at some point, because likes are helpful to, know if you're growing or not. But I think for me, for now, I'm going to leave it on for a few months and see how it affects me. I also want to tell you guys that you should learn more about the artists you admire. A lot of us overestimate or underestimate actually how much work they put into everything that they do and how much work they put in to become the people and artists that they are today. I mean, today, there's so many time lapses and speed paints out there that our minds kind of think that artists paint that fast in real time when it's completely false. I hear all the time artists are watching me and others on stream and they're like, wow, this is really, really inspiring. I didn't really realize how slow and methodical that artists are when they're working on their craft. I thought it was super fast. And that's just insane to know that that's effect is happening to us when we're watching these time lapses and videos. We're thinking that everything has to be super quick, but in reality, that's just not how things work. Oftentimes, an artist has put in a decade of intense effort to get to where they are, and you're comparing that result with 1 year, not even 1 year of their work from your entire experience, and you're thinking that you're already too far behind, when in reality, you have no right to be comparing yourself to that way because you simply haven't done anywhere near the amount of work that they have done. One of my favorite artists is Guiez, and I'm on his Patreon, and lately his videos on just perspective alone have shown how much thought he has put in to all of his artworks and what he thinks about before he even starts something. And I really feel like that is going to be eye-opening for a lot of people because I think a lot of people think that these amazing artists just doodle and eventually something cool comes out and it's like, oh, that's cool. I'm going to polish this up and find some reference. No, they're actually deciding what they want to do, how they want it to look, how they can use perspective as a tool to make things look better, the camera, focal length, and everything. They think about these things. And that's how these individual artworks, at least, come to fruition. And if you're over here just trying to doodle and you're frustrated that it's not looking amazing, well, there you go. Not even the pros do that. Talking more on that note of realizing that everything isn't necessarily in your control, I was watching a video on YouTube where Miyazaki, who is the guy who made Studio Ghibli and all those amazing animations, he even says that he struggles with the pain of not being able to create what he sees in his mind every single time. That he is huge, he's world renowned, everyone loves the Studio Ghibli films, and he feels that struggle that we all feel in our own mediocre little art lives right now. That was insane to me. This is something that's basically the curse of being an artist, really, because we're trying so hard to chase this idea we have in our head, but almost every single time we are going to fall short and we're going to continue to have more ideas, try to capture them, and then fall short again. The crazy thing is, though, is that we're always looking at those artists and we hear how they hate or dislike their work and we're like, they're so insane. If I could just have one tiny fraction of your art skill, I would be so happy. I would draw all the time. But in reality, someone might be thinking about you that way. I know that's happened to me. I've said that a lot and people come to me saying, hey, if I could just have a little bit of what you're doing. And then I realize we all do that. We just are at different points in our journey. We're at different skill levels, but we all feel the same way. So take that into consideration. No, every artist is trying to do this, but they're only getting here. And it sucks. And you're doing the same thing, and you're part of them. And we're all artists just trying to get through this curse that we have to bear. So when you have that inevitable feeling of despair, when you don't get that external motivation, when it doesn't match up or measure up to your own expectations, the only thing you can lean on is internal motivation. And so let's talk about how to build that. So all it is really, what do you like? What do you love? What are you passionate about? It doesn't have to be something super profound like saving lives. It can be something just as simple as, what do you care about personally? Here are some questions you can ask yourself. Is there something that you've seen in the world that is super cool that you want to try out one day? Is there any certain message that you want to share with the world that you feel like needs to be said? Is there something that you feel like is wrong with the world that needs to be addressed? And I think a really fun one is, if you could pick one art skill to master, what would it be and what would you do after you master it? Only one. Which one would you pick? I think we all mastered this as kids and children when we all drew, right? And we forgot that really simple joy and satisfaction at trying to create something and express ourselves. You guys know I'm not really into drawing animals, but I remember one of the first animals that I drew as a kid was this black panther in a children's book that was leaning on a branch in a tree. I just thought it was really cool because I loved lean, big cats back then. And I drew it, and in my memory, it was pretty good. Like, it was pretty good in my memory. Now let's be honest here. I was like a single digits. It probably was not good. All right. If you've seen my work from before Ergo Josh and all that, you'd probably know it's probably not that good. But in my mind, my memory tells me it's pretty good. So that shows you how important it is that we really kind of capture that now. And I think it is important to feel good about the work that you do in some way now, but it's really hard because we almost kind of forget about it as adults, because now our eyes have opened and we see what other people can do. And all of a sudden that means that whatever we create has no value. I also want to tell you guys that just because you see something as cool and it's created by somebody else doesn't mean that it has no value for you to try it out yourself. We all do that. In music, in art, in technology, we kind of leapfrog from the backs of others before us in order to experience something new and create something new. So I want you, if you see something cool in a show or an animation that you want to try as well, please, by all means, do that. I mean, Ethan Becker talked about in his latest video when he was talking about these amazing animation techniques. We all have done it. There's a really popular YouTuber, I'll try to link it somewhere in this video below, where he shows that all kinds of scenes that he has in his content, he's copied from films, which have copied from films before. And I want you to try to get rid of that, all that noise in your head telling you that it's not valuable, it's not creative enough, it's not authentic enough. If you see something cool, try it, have fun, enjoy it. That's what we did as kids. And enjoy that fact that this is your version of it, right? And that's all it needs to be. And enjoy that. I really want you all to try it if you haven't already, or if you're not already doing it. Another technique you can do to build your own confidence and your own internal motivation is to learn to create the minimum risk task that can push you towards something like that goal. Maybe it's an animation you want to make one day. Maybe you want to get really good at drawing people just because you want to make a manga or a comic. Maybe, who knows, you just want to create a painting that touches the lives of everyone in the world. I don't know what it is you want to do. Maybe it's just something really cool that you've seen before that you want to try. I want you to think about creating that minimum risk task that will push you at least 1 inch, 1 centimeter closer to that. When you learn how to do that and you learn how to measure that, you're going to start building some confidence that will keep you in those moments of darkness that will come, and that come to all of us as artists and never really stops. But you're going to not give up and quit art for 3 weeks. You're going to push through it. Maybe you'll be frustrated for a day and you'll keep on trucking. Lastly, I hope that's all has helped you a lot, but I want to talk about why it's so important, again, to have internal motivation. Everyone struggles with external motivators that kind of bring them down, like negative comments. Maybe they don't get as much likes. It doesn't turn out the way they wanted. But when you have a strong internal motivation, you're able to push through that negativity. You're able to keep going when somebody else would have given up. And I believe that is the very thing that differentiates pro artists, high level artists, experienced artists from the newer artists and beginner artists who are still struggling. Honestly, this is something that I feel like is potentially part of the thing so-called talent that we parade and, give accolades to people for having. Because I've always had this really strong desire to create things and create specific things and get better at those things, that no matter what, no matter how dark my day has gotten, which has happened plenty of times, it only lasts for about a day or two. I'll never stop drawing for more than 2 or 3 days unless I was really, really sick and I literally couldn't use my arm, which has happened. Other than that, I would never stop creating for a week. That would just not happen because I want so bad to get to this goal, to get to this thing. So if you're the one who has only external motivators, when you're frustrated and you stop, the person with internal motivation is still going to be working. When you give up, they're still going to be working. When you're looking for other sources of external motivation, trying so hard, they're still going to be working. And when you get distracted, again, they're still going to be working. I'm going to be honest, suffering tends to bring out this desire, this down bad desire to get really good at something or master something or achieve this goal. And unfortunately, this is something that, some people get for free, right? You get to suffer through something and it makes you want to pursue art. But I don't think it's absolutely necessary. I don't want you to go force yourself to suffer, but I do want you to know that this is something that is going to demand something of you depending on the intensity of your goal. And sometimes you're going to want to make sacrifices, but it won't even feel that bad because it's what you want to do. You want to do something else so much more. And trust me, I've made plenty of sacrifices, but they didn't really hurt me because it's like, well, this is what I want to do and there's nothing else to it. Now, you may be thinking, all right, Josh, that's all good, well and done, but that's a lot easier said than done. And you're right, this takes time to do. This is not something that you can just have overnight if you don't have it already. But again, you want to build it up using the tips that I've given you, and you want to try to minimize external motivators if it's something that you're too reliant on. The only real thing that's going to stop you from going forward and developing strong internal motivation is fear itself. Fear and doubt is going to come at you from every single angle on this journey. You're going to doubt so many things. You're going to be fearful of, is all this effort going to be worth it? And so that's why I want to talk about that in the next video, so that while you're working on your motivation, while you're trying to find different sources of internal motivation for yourself and take time and reflect on those things, I want to make sure that you can get a grip on this kind of fear thing, because it can come out of nowhere and it tends to just be like, just primal, and it just happens, and you need to know when to catch it, learn how it happens, learn what triggers it, so that you can kind of address it and it gets less and less powerful over you over time. So again, that's going to be in the next video. I'm going to teach you how to build confidence to overcome that fear that tends to very often create art block. But until then, make sure you like, subscribe, and leave a comment on what you thought about this video, what you think about art block, and if this helped you. And I'll see you all in the next one. Peace. So I heard you are dealing with art block, huh? Well, you've come to the right place. Hi, I'm Ergo Josh, and today I am going to be your art block doctor, your art teacher that is going to give you the motivation that you need to never have art block again. All right, let's get started.